there's a story to be told about a UFO encounter with law enforcement in Lumberton, Robeson County, North Carolina, 1975. And of course, CJ and I are in deep Chatham County in central North Carolina, Robeson County, not that far away.
Well, let me tell you, this case was actually the late Lee Spiegel's case. This depiction that you have up there, the drawing, that was a drawing, and Lee Spiegel was one of the gentlemen that you see that's underneath that light. That's the really awesome thing about this case. Now, this case actually happened. It happened in 11 different cities, in several counties, dealing with over 29 police officers in 4 nights. Now, if I went through this case with you right now, we would at least be, oh my gosh, almost an hour, because it started in Lumberton, and 3 police officers from Lumberton PD saw it hovering over a water tower behind the high school. So it went from there. It then shot off to another town that was in, I believe it was Robeson County. One whole night, it hit about 3 different counties. And what was very unique, all said it was a triangle shape with the lights, just like you see on that picture, the lights underneath the V-shaped craft, and it was silent. Sometimes it went very slowly over them. Sometimes it shot off like a bullet. But every officer said the same thing. They described the same craft, they described the same lights, and they described that it had no sound whatsoever. All 4 nights of this thing, during the day, of course, it was gone. But then right as, say, about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, it was back again, and they'd be chasing it.
Hey, Unexplained Ones, this is Dr. Mounts with All Things Unexplained. If you'd like to support the show, there's a few ways you can do it. One of the best ways is to check out our YouTube store. Just head over to youtube.com/@allthingsunexplained. You'll find hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, slides, and more. Another way to support the show is wherever you're listening. Make sure to follow or subscribe. Make sure to comment, hit the like buttons, share with everybody. And if you have a chance, leave us a rating and a review. These things really help the show defeat the algorithms that try to keep us away from disclosure. Finally, you can head over to BigfootUFO.com for lots more. And remember, the truth is still out there.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
Prior to your abduction, did you believe in UFOs or any sort of alien life form?
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All right, everybody, welcome back to All Things Unexplained. I'm Dr. Mounts, and we're back again, and Smitty Neves is joining me tonight. We are ecstatic to welcome, and let me put their logo up on the screen, Marianne, Robb, and Dave Rich from the UAP-PD, located in Arizona. They are retired Arizona law enforcement officers with 59 years of combined experience.
Wow.
They present nuances of investigating UAPs as law enforcement professionals, including the hurdles that have kept UAP investigations from occurring. And I think most of our listeners know, but I feel like I should clarify exactly what UAP means. It's the new term for UFO. It stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon. There are approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers in the United States, They work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They are seeing things, but they are not talking about what they're seeing. Marianne and Dave are here to tell us why and share with us some of the best UFO cases. Their mission with UAP-PD is to provide insight into unexplained phenomenon seen by law enforcement officers, many of whom have not spoken about their encounters due to the stigma put on them. And you guys, if you're up for it, I would love to present some historical law enforcement UFO encounters from
Sure.
your files. And I've got a couple of surprises in there for you as well. The first one I want to pull up, let me get this on the screen here.
That's a good case. I like that.
That's a great
wait,
case.
isn't that awesome?
Hey, look at those guys.
That's a great case.
That's Marianne, Robb, and Dave Rich from UAP-PD. And
This is all
so
yours.
I've heard there's a story to be told about a UFO encounter with law enforcement in Lumberton, Robeson County, North Carolina, 1975. And of course, CJ and I are in deep Chatham County in central North Carolina, Robeson County, not that far away.
Well, let me tell you, this case was actually the late Lee Spiegel's case. This depiction that you have up there, the drawing, that was a drawing, and Lee Spiegel was one of the gentlemen that you see that's underneath that light. That's the really awesome thing about this case. Now, this case actually happened. It happened in 11 different cities in several counties, dealing with over 29 police officers in 4 nights. Now, if I went through this case with you right now, we would at least be, oh my gosh, almost an hour trying to explain, because it started in Lumberton, and 3 police officers from Lumberton PD saw it hovering over a water tower behind the high school. So it went from there. It then shot off to another town that was in, I believe it was Robeson County, and that police officer saw it. It then went, and I don't have the specifics on all the counties, but it hit of one whole night. It hit about 3 different counties. And what was very unique is North Carolina has a bunch of counties, but this triangle, and they all said it was a triangle shape with the lights, just like you see on that picture, the lights underneath the V-shaped craft, and it was silent. Sometimes it went very slowly over them. Sometimes it shot off like a bullet. But every officer said the same thing. They described the same craft. They described the same lights, and they described that it had no sound whatsoever. All 4 nights of this thing, during the day, of course, it was gone. But then right as, say, about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, boom, it was back again, and they'd be chasing it. It only went several counties. And if we had a map of North Carolina, these 7 counties are, I would say, the lower east side of North Carolina. They thought it was heading south. So one of the dispatchers contacted South Carolina and says, hey, watch out, this craft's coming your way. Never came. It never went any further to the west, to the east, or to the north. Every night it stayed right in these 7 counties. It was seen, the first night was seen over a water tower. On I believe it was the middle of the 3rd night, it was seen in a different county over a water tower. So you kind of got to wonder, is it getting its power from the water tower, the water source? I don't know. But what I tell people, which I think is funny being cops, is that I believe that the teenager aliens took their mom and dad's V-shaped craft and were joyriding around in these 7 counties and having all these cops follow them, but could never catch them. So I always kind of say that, but it was very interesting. But Lee Spiegel actually went back into the Lumberton area, and he was able to finally chase it around with some law enforcement officials, and they were actually able to get basically underneath it, just like you see in that photo. Again, it's about 4 days. It was sporadic, maybe a couple of days later, but then all of a sudden it was gone. But it was just one of the most interesting cases. And I know there's other cases that police officers, different agencies have followed and chased a craft. However, this one was the most significant, having over almost 30 police officers, several counties, and 11 cities in 4 nights. That was so interesting about that case.
That is wild. A multi-night event. It's the artist depiction. It's a triangular craft with some lights around the edges. It really reminds me a lot. Our military consultant, Mr. J, when he was living right down the road from me, I'd say a mile and a half. At some point in that house, he had an encounter with a triangular craft. Silently, slowly went over his house, killed all the electronics that he had, cell phones, cameras, everything, and then boom, it was gone. So totally reminds me of that. I would love to have you guys back on sometime. Maybe we could do a show just on this encounter. I think that would be fascinating, especially since it's literally right down the road from us here in central North Carolina.
Definitely.
That would be terrific. Smitty, do you have something to say on that?
I was just going to say that would be neat. The whole thing about the law enforcement reminds me of our first podcast.
Oh yeah, and we're going to get into that here on another slide. And there it is.
Florida, Mississippi. So our very first podcast was with an anonymous law enforcement witness from this very famous case from 1977, Florida, Mississippi, where over a dozen law enforcement officers followed this. It was over 2 dozen.
Oh yeah, over 2 dozen law enforcement officers from different branches, right? I mean, it was highway patrol, it was sheriffs, it was all kinds of different.
It was local deputies, city deputies, sheriff's department, highway patrol. You want me to just tell them about it?
Yeah, because Smitty and I are connected to this case because we both grew up in Mississippi, and this case happened in rural Mississippi.
Yeah, the man that we talked to, we call him Mr. Billy. Well, he'd been having these encounters with UAP since the mid-50s. And one night he's in his house, I believe it's around 9:30 p.m. Somebody knocks on his door and tells him, says, what you've been seeing is out in this cotton field. Come follow me. Well, he gets in his patrol car and he follows one of the deputies out there. The deputy stops. He's too frightened to continue on because he's already saw what was in the field. So Billy goes out there, and about 25 to 30 feet off the ground is what he described as a UFO, and it looked like 2 antebellum bales that had been turned upside down, or one turned upside down, and they'd been welded together in the middle, and at the center was portholes to where you could see light on the inside of the craft, and it sat there for 35 to 40 minutes. And then said that 2 of the off-duty police officers got in their truck, went toward it, it would back away, and then they saw a glowing red light in the center of it underneath, and they turned and went the opposite direction. It moved back into position where it had originally been, and after that it took off to, I believe, the northwest at a high rate of speed, and it just continued to go up and hundreds of feet, and eventually disappeared. Well, they chased it on down the road there for a little bit, but this is like one of the most witnessed UFO sightings in American history.
Yeah, well documented. Also left physical evidence on the ground, and Mr. Billy, y'all, he shocked us with the revelation too. I say it was well documented, so some of this stuff was in the public domain, but he told us something that was never in any news article about it, never in the public domain. He said the very next day, the sheriff's office got a call and they wanted to talk to somebody about this incident. And they said, well, here, we're going to let you talk to Billy about it. And it was one Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Wow.
Nice.
Excellent.
Calling Mr. Billy. And not only did he call him and talk to him about this, he had some quite, stunning revelations that he revealed to Mr. Billy. He wanted to know, hey, is it around an atomic power plant? And he told Mr. Billy, we have this theory that they harness the power of gravity to move about. And then, of course, we've heard more about that in recent years from folks like Bob Lazar and other sources. So quite an amazing story for us to have as our first ever episode. That was over 3 years ago and over 300 episodes ago. Not only that, but you know what? It taught us the existence of the UFO rabbit hole.
Yeah. Oh,
Because with this one case only, I essentially had to buy a new external hard drive.
Oh,
I mean, the more I dug, the more it just kept going and going and going. And y'all, it was never going to stop. You remember that, Smitty?
Oh, yeah. And then one of the things that also is interesting, that one of the police officers that was there that night, the CIA contacted him, and he would just basically acted as like that incident never happened after that. He wouldn't talk about it. He wouldn't say anything.
Oh, yeah.
And so we just kind of left Billy hanging out to dry when it came to discussing what they had witnessed. But
yeah, and you talked so much about the stigma, and it was applied to this case.
Oh, yeah.
In exact same fashion. They'll still talk about it amongst each other, but not really to anybody else. And even Mr. Billy, who had nothing to lose or gain, he still did not feel comfortable, using his real name and go. And this was in 1977.
Yeah. You just wish we had body cams back in 1977.
Oh, yeah. And, he was as believable and rational and intelligent of a man as you could speak to. But the stigma still went with him, not only for him, but he would not use even the names of the other law enforcement officers, right? Like he would allude to them, like what their title was, for example. But he was very cognizant of their sensitivity to having their names put out there about this, even, all these years later. So our next slide here that we wanted to get your insight on, the Royal Canadian Police case in 1978.
Clarendon, Newfoundland. So up in Canada, they have UFOs up there too. So this is a case involving a Canadian Mountie by the name of Jim Blackwood. He was actually received a call to go out to the bay in Clarendon, where there was an object seen hovering about 100 feet above the water, right out there in the bay. So he gets there. There are multiple witnesses that are there. He's looking at it. It's there for a rather extended period of time because he had enough time to go get a telescope, bring it over and look at it. And he described it as being like a dull metal color, but it had lights on it. It was like red and blue lights. And so it was hovering there, and there were basically all these people looking at it. So he tries to come up with a way of interacting with it. So he angles his patrol car so that he's pointing at it, and he turns the headlights on and off as a way to kind of signal it to see if there's any type of response. And in response to him shining his lights on and off, the craft shines lights back at him. So it's showing intelligence, kind of like with your case where it was moving when the cars were coming closer. It's obviously displaying some sort of intelligence. After a while of them trying to interact, they don't really have any other contact with it per se. It flies up and takes off. Now, a couple of things happen in this. After it took off, it was caught on radar in a nearby radar station. There were multiple witnesses. So they end up having an investigation into it. The government in Canada investigates it, and they try to say that it was Jupiter, that they all saw Jupiter, which really confuses me because the last time I checked, Jupiter wasn't 100 feet off of the bay, shining lights back at people at it. And I've never known Jupiter to show up on radar here on ground. So obviously they're coming up with a story. Two last things about this. One that I think is absolutely great, and one is, in my opinion, absolutely tragic. The thing that's absolutely tragic is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police admin told Mountie Blackwood that he needed to go and talk about this topic. So they basically ordered him to go provide a statement to the media about what he had witnessed. In our presentation that we do, we actually have a clip of his recounting of what it was. And after that case, after that incident where he had to report it, his entire career took a downward turn. And when asked about it afterwards, he basically said it was the worst mistake he's ever made in his life. And the part that really frustrates me and I think is tragic is that wasn't a mistake. He was ordered to do it by his supervisors, and his supervisors basically left him out to dry. And that is going into the stigma of, as officers, we don't want to encounter this. We don't want to talk about it because we have no recourse or nobody to fall back on, because our admin, our supervisors, they're not going to back us. And it was just like that with Mountie Blackwood. He was basically left hanging. The only positive thing to come out of this is the local hockey team changed their name to the Clarenville UFOs. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Oh, wow. Well, I tell you what, it's just sickening what the officer had to go through there. And it totally reminds you of, current times with UFO whistleblowers. We have David Grush here coming out as a UFO whistleblower, literally filing a claim with the intelligence community, attorney general or inspector general, right? And not that long after he comes out and testifies before Congress, lo and behold, a reporter is given a tip for the specific county to FOIA the police about an incident with David Grush, and it's all over the news, right? So the smearing campaigns, the psyops, it continues even to this day, and it's really sad, and it's really heartbreaking too.
There is a true threat to anybody coming forward to speak of the truth, and that's why we feel it's important to take anybody who is brave enough to come forward and at least listen to what they say and at least look into it the best that we can, because they're owed that, because they are taking a risk in coming forward and saying something, and we owe it to them to take it seriously.
Absolutely. You know what I think it speaks to? Guys, I think it speaks to the fact that, like we said, police reports and military reports, they really should be part of the gold standard. And I think that the general public does recognize that. And it is because of that, that's one reason why they are discredited and put through this humiliating process, because their word does carry so much weight, with the general public. So I think an informed public is one of the greatest enemies of our government entity and our military as well. So very disturbing trend there. Well, our next incident here, Smitty, did you have something else on that?
I was just going to say, I think, too, our society is taught not to question the standard or the norm. So when people do, they tend to stigmatize them as to, their sanity or if they really saw what they did, because we're taught to just take everything for face value, even though that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and our next case, Warren, Minnesota, 1979, Val Johnson's squad car case, and we have a police vehicle here that sustained damage during a UFO encounter.
Oh, this is a really good one. Back in 1979, Deputy Val Johnson was driving down the highway. It was about 1:40 in the morning. He looked off to his left and noticed that there was a bright light about 3 to 4 feet in diameter that was just above the roadway. Well, he was thinking, okay, could it have been a truck crash? Could it have been an airplane down? He had no idea what it was. Makes a left-hand turn, heads down to on the highway 220. And as he's driving toward that light, all of a sudden, that light jumped through his windshield and hit him, as he called it, a 200-pound pillow. He
Wow.
was out for about 30 minutes, and we actually have his radio transmission. That's when we do our talk, we let people listen to his radio transmission, and he basically tells dispatch, "I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on." First responders get there. They take him to the hospital, and the doctor says that both of his eyes were burnt, and they described them as arc welder burns to his eyes, and his whole jaw was his teeth were fractured at the gum line.
Knocked out.
So that's why when you hear the
Sorry.
transmission, it's kind of very
Hard to understand.
garbly, because his teeth were fractured. He went while they did the investigation on the roadway, and as you can see on what would be the right hand picture is his patrol car, that it rolled about 385 more feet after he was unconscious, and it came to rest in a 90-degree angle in oncoming traffic. He had no idea what in the world happened. On the left hand side picture, that is his patrol car. And his patrol car, I don't know if it's still there, but back in 1979, and I don't know how long, but that was actually in the Historical Society in, I don't know if it was Warren. Was it Warren County? Okay.
Their museum.
Yeah.
Historical museum.
And if you look at the damage to his car, it went basically on the driver's side, approximately maybe a foot to 2 feet in diameter. It hit the headlight, went over the hood, went straight up over the driver's windshield. It hit the light bar, and it went straight down and hit a couple of the antennas and bent his antennas. His car clock that's inside the car and his wristwatch were in sync 14 minutes behind what the time actually was. So he had stoppage of time at that point too. He had no idea what was going on, and the engineers came out from Honeywell to go do some type of testing on it, and they went, well, there's got to be some type of magnetic force that hit it. And then they said, well, actually, a thing must have collided with the patrol car. That was their technical. Yes.
Technical.
Yeah.
So, but to this day, nobody has no idea what it was. And the sheriff, Val Johnson sheriff, totally believed what happened, his story of what happened to him that night.
Wow. And, I think this just goes to show you that people in the know about UFOs and UAPs understand that this phenomenon has affected people on many different levels. And one of them is physically. It has affected people physically through injuries and other physical situations. And what makes it sad is that, and we probably won't have time to get into this organization tonight, but AARO, the All-Domain Anomalous Resolution Office, right? They basically say, hey, we don't know of any cases where UFO, UAP encounters have led to physical situations with the people that encountered it. And the people in UFO, UAP community are like, wait, what? Why do you not know? We know. I mean, here's a great example of a case, and this was in 1979. So imagine how many more there have been since then. Fascinating case.
No doubt.
And our next and last historical encounter is not really a historical encounter, but it is law enforcement encounter from this year. So I had to throw this one in there for y'all. A little bit of a curveball. This captured the world's attention. And so it was a UFO encounter or situation that involved police officers, and it was on two fronts, really. The infamous backyard in Las Vegas UFO report. So it started with apparently a police traffic stop, and there really was some sort of celestial phenomenon that passed through the sky that the police officer recorded, I think unawares, by the way, on his body cam. I'm not sure the police officer was actually aware that he captured that. And then I believe it was the same night there was a 911 call, and we've had a 911 call tonight already. Another 911 call, and the guys are like, "Hey, UFO crashed in our backyard. There's aliens. They're like 9 to 10 feet tall. Send help." What do y'all know about this case?
I like this one here.
Well, we actually have some friends that work in that area. While we have not completed an official investigation in it, we're getting some pretty disappointing answers. You guys, we mentioned Mark D'Antonio already tonight, who's a friend of ours. He's one of the video and photo analysis specialists for MUFON. He actually looked at the body cam footage from the one patrol officer that was out on the traffic stop when the green light flashes in the sky. And he is pretty convinced that it is a meteorite that is coming through and not actually an actual craft. So we got that information. Again, like I said, we're still kind of investigating, but we did come across some information from some people who may or may not have been in the backyard. And they emphatically deny that there was anything in the backyard. Now, again, like, we have not seen body cam footage of this. We haven't seen anything like that because of privacy rules. In a backyard like that, you're not going to be allowed to have that type of stuff broadcast because it's private property. But the sources that we have talked to are very, very reliable and credible. You mentioned earlier that, like, we will look into things, whether they are true or not, because we want to get to the bottom of it one way or another. We have had a number of investigations that have unfortunately taken or capitalized on the popularity of UFOs in an attempt to make a name for themselves or try to establish credibility for something, and we were able to clearly prove that it wasn't the case. One of the ones that I told you about before we went on was a case that I investigated where the person reported this flashing light that they had video of was supposedly a UFO that was outside of his house that he had on video. Unbeknownst to him, we have a lot of technology that we can actually amplify the lighting in rooms, and we can amplify a lot of the video that we get back. And we were able to amplify it enough to clearly see that what he had done was actually taped a light to a ceiling behind a ceiling fan, turned on the ceiling fan, and then filmed the light being obstructed by the blade as it went by, trying to claim that it was a UFO. I'm not saying that that's what happened in this case, but because we're not done yet, but the information that we're getting right now is highly, highly, highly suspect.
Right. And I tell you what, this really exemplifies one of the reasons why organizations like Marianne Robb's and Dave Rich's UAP-PD is so important, because the mainstream media basically does nothing but pick up on stories that somebody else ran, right, with essentially already little to no research, and then they do put no research whatsoever into it, except they just run it again, and it perpetuates around the globe, and then it's done. The next day, it's forgotten about, and it's basically written off as the truth. Like, whatever the first person in the chain wrote, that's the impression that's left in everybody's mind, forever on that. And I think it's up to organizations like yours, like the UAPD, to dig more into these cases, because if you don't do it, there literally wouldn't be anybody else out there doing it. We at this podcast have debunked, big time news stations who have claimed to have an exclusive report. And through just a little bit of sleuthing, we determined no, that's from a documentary from 1998. This is not an exclusive in 2023. We're sorry, we won't call any names, but you can look at our social media and see some of those examples. But guys, I just applaud you for the research and the effort and the work that you put into these cases. I think it's very important. I think it's adding actual science to the field of knowledge here, and we thank you so
and
much.
your law enforcement service.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
I'm a
Absolutely.
teacher. I'm a teacher, and I feel much better now that we have a full-time SRO on campus.
Yeah.
So it makes things a lot better for us, a lot safer.
No,
Yep.
no.
And we have so much more we would love to talk about, but if it's okay, we would love to get your hot takes on just a few topics real quick. So just your quick hot takes on some topics that might be of noteworthiness to our listeners. And then we'll close it out for tonight. And we would love to have you back on with us because we have so much more to talk about. And you know what? This UFO, UAP topic, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So there's going to be lots more to talk about for quite a while now. But guys, I would love to get your hot take on the keystone event of them all in ufology, Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. That's a tough one.
My personal take on that is this. There's a lot of evidence there. There is a lot of evidence there. Hot take, I think something happened. There's just way too much evidence to say that it wasn't. And there's way too much evidence to have basically faked it, if you know what I mean. Like, we have multiple crash sites, we have debris, we have multiple witnesses, multiple locations. There's just too much there for me to consciously say that nothing happened. Now, was it a UFO or was it a piece of our technology that was advanced that we don't understand? That I don't know, but I don't think it was a weather balloon, I'll tell you that much.
That's kind of how I feel. I kind of match it up to, say, the Phoenix Lights here in Arizona, 1997. Phoenix Lights happened. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people saw this V-shaped craft go over the Phoenix area. Police officers, first responders. There was an actor that was in a plane coming from California to Phoenix. He saw it. Yes, he saw it.
Yep.
He was Dick Bliskin.
But,
he was Jack Burton.
But what happened there? The government really quick put up some jet fighters up there and sprayed some flares. And so, oh no, you just saw flares. That's what I think happened at Roswell. Yes, there was a crash. Whether or not, again, could it be a UFO? Could it be any type of government technology that was not supposed to be out there and it just crashed? But what did they do? They put the weather balloon out there and they told the military guys that actually saw this, they told them, no, you're going to tell this story. There is so much going on. Even as of today, the folks from Roswell, I was just there a few months ago. They, again, if this was just a fake story or whatever, it's not going to be, what is it now, 75 years? They would not be still talking about this crash. So, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, quite interestingly, a little bit later in the same year, we had the formation of the CIA and the Air Force. Very interesting, right? Nothing to see at Roswell, but we think we might need this thing with CIA and Air Force to kick into gear, you know, just in case. So, and, you know, of course, the governor of Arizona had that mockery of a press conference, talk about stigma and psyops, where he ran out this dude dressed up like an alien and basically mocked all the witnesses of the Phoenix Lights and just immediately cast it into the category of parody, right?
Interesting side note on the Phoenix Lights is we have two police officers, one sheriff's deputy and one Mesa PD officers that have both come forward that they were working on the night that it happened and gave us stories and statements of what they saw on the night that they were working. So, you know, we have credible law enforcement officers that witnessed it on that night who have come forward and talked about it. So again, going with your the gold standard of what our witnesses are, we got 2 different law enforcement agency officers who witnessed it.
Now, you do talk to law enforcement officers about other anomalous phenomenon besides UFO and UAP. What's your hot take on the granddaddy of all cryptids, Bigfoot, and is there a correlation between Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings in your experience?
I've never have, of course, had an experience on that, but talking about the Bigfoot, I think they come from another dimension. That's why we have not been able to find any type of evidence. If bears, deer, elk, or anything else, you're going to find a carcass. You're going to find some scat. You're going to find some kind of hair. You're going to find something. And there hasn't been anything of a Bigfoot that has been found, any type of evidence. My thought, when you're talking to people that have seen the Bigfoot, they say they see it maybe 2 or 3 or 4 feet, and then all of a sudden it just disappears. To me, it's going back into their dimension. It's going through a portal. It's going back into their time. The UFO, I know David Paulides talks about the missing people. He does talk about Bigfoot, and he also talks about the UFOs. If you want to take over on that.
So, well, yeah, the UFO and the Bigfoot thing, I have my own unique perspective on it, and I don't know if you want to hear it or not.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so in your mind, do me a favor. Picture a highway going down the road. Picture another highway intersecting it. It goes over it, goes under it, whatever. So you got an overpass there. What if we're all driving down the highway and Bigfoot is driving on the other highway, and we go under that, we cross those 2 highways at the same time? So while we're driving down the road, minding our own business, and we're not at the overpass, we're not going to see anything. But as we get close to the overpass, we'll see him until we leave that area again. Isn't it interesting that there have been documented cases where there will be a field of snow, footprints of a Bigfoot will appear out of nowhere, not come out of the woods, like right in the middle of the field. They will go for like 100, 150 yards and then disappear, not at a tree line, but in the middle of the field. So unless Bigfoot got dropped by a helicopter, walked for 150 feet, and then jumped up and flew out on the helicopter again, there's no logical explanation for how those footprints appeared and then disappeared. And so that's why I personally believe that Bigfoot is an interdimensional type thing. And what we're seeing are these moments where our world and his world kind of intersect. And then you'll look through, and I feel personally that this also explains a lot of things, like paranormal phenomena, like residual hauntings, stuff like that, where we're just taking a glimpse into another area because for some reason we're at a crossroads where we can see it. And then as we keep on going by and we keep on our way, we lose sight of it, just like we lose sight of that overpass that we just went under, where we saw what was on that other highway. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, or it might just be crazy. I don't
Makes
know.
as good a sense as a lot of other things and theories we've heard on it. So I think it's a pretty good theory, Dave. So I appreciate that. And my last hot take for you tonight, I don't know if it involves any law enforcement officers, but it does involve many different military personnel. Over Super Bowl weekend of this year, 3 UFOs were shot down, and one was over Alaska, near Dead Horse, Alaska. And Ross Coulthart, the reporter, just broke a story where apparently there were more than 3 UFOs shot down. Now, this one apparently over Alaska, they won't release the video footage of it, won't release any pictures. They said they blasted it down. I couldn't recover it, whether it was too bad. They left, nothing else, to it. So, by the way, this was all wrapped up with the Chinese spy balloon just a few days before getting shot down not far from CJ and myself near Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So, what's your hot take? What should we make of spy balloons, UFOs getting shot down? There's one out there over Dead Horse, Alaska. Military's not talking. What's going on? What do we make of this?
I
Can
yeah, please
Okay.
do.
My take on it is this. Could it be spy balloons? Yes. Could it be something other than? Yes. The problem is everything that conveniently gets shot down seems to land in places where we can't go out and get to it. So isn't it convenient that when it crashes in a part of Alaska that the average person is most likely not going to get to? Or in your case, it crashed off the coast in the water. So now the government, now here's the part that causes me to be conflicted. As a police officer, I took an oath to protect everybody. We want to keep people safe. Is it not more safe to shoot something down where it's going to not land on a schoolhouse full of children or a bus full of nuns? Yes. So we want it to crash in an area where it's going to land safely. But is that also not a very convenient excuse to make it be where the average person or the average investigator is not going to be able to see what it was that actually landed? Yes. And so that's where my personal take on this is I'm very conflicted, because it could be one or the other, and we do not have the ability to go forward and see it because the government's not going to tell us. Because let's face it, the government doesn't want to give control. They don't want. That's the one thing that everybody always asks about disclosure. I'm like, I don't know if we're ever going to get disclosure in our lifetime, and I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people mad. But the reality is governments like power. They don't want to give it up. If they have knowledge, knowledge is power. If I tell you, if I'm the government, do I really want to tell the people that, hey, there is a group of individuals that we have no control over that are flying over our military bases, over our civilian population, and we have absolutely no way of stopping them? That does not make me look powerful. So I at no point as a government am going to look at you and say, that's going to happen. No, I'm going to say that's a weather balloon or you're crazy. I'm not going to tell you what is really out there. And so when you talk about these, whether they're spy balloons or UFOs or whatever it was that were shot down, I don't know. I think it fits way too easily into all of these categories, because even if it isn't, even if it is some sort of spy balloon or some sort of either China or Russia or some other foreign power that wants to send something over there, that in and of itself, take the UFO completely out of the equation, that still doesn't look good as a government, that China or Russia or some other military or other country is flying stuff over our country and we're not stopping it.
Right.
Any way you look at it, that looks bad. So to me, their best way of covering it up is to say, well, hey, we shot it down. It's nothing. You can't get it. Let's just make sure it lands somewhere where nobody can get to it and see what it is.
That's it. I mean, happened at Roswell. I mean, we didn't shoot it down, but it crashed. Okay. It's a weather balloon. Don't worry about it. So these folks, did they actually, what they shot down, did it land to where, whether it's in the ocean or somewhere where a human cannot get to? We don't know. Is it a good possibility the military has recovered it and taken it to wherever for more testing? Again, there is no disclosure. They say, oh, we're doing disclosure. They're not doing disclosure. It'll be real interesting if in our lifetime that they ever come forward and tell us what really is going on, what happened in 1947 or the Phoenix Lights or what happened in the Super Bowl. I just don't that my take of it, it's not going to happen.
And going back to where we talked about that tipping point with society, I think things would change if all of a sudden society on a whole started to believe things like this were real, or the possibility of them were real. I think we would see a lot further or a lot more motion towards true disclosure, because the government's going to look at it and go, well, hey, the majority of the people believe it's real. So if they already believe it, we've already lost. So until the majority of the people start believing it, they can still say, no, just feed them a line, feed them a line, feed them a line, because the majority of the people still think that this is crazy.
The only thing about that is look at all the movies, TV shows, all this, well, like Get Smart. They're already talking in their shoe or talking on their phone, their wristwatch. They're doing it now. So I think a lot of the people already know this is out there. Just the TV shows, let's try it again. War of the Worlds. back, what was that, in the 50s, 60s? That movie came out. And that was, so I think television and movies are already showing us, yes, the UFOs are there.
They're desensitizing us.
But, I think, to me, if the military just says, yep, this is happening, we have UFOs, I think people are going to go, well, it's about time you tell us. I don't think there's going to be hysteria. My thought is people are going to finally say, well, duh, we already know, it's about time you come forward. But
Right. And friend of the show, Ryan Sprague, who does the Somewhere in the Skies podcast, he's actually putting together a group to go look for the Dead Horse Alaska UFO. He has some insider information up there that said, hey, yeah, this thing was brought down and there's still parts of it out there. And, the government at first tried to blame it on a kid's Pico balloon, a recreational Pico balloon. We had the guy that basically made that Pico balloon on our show because nobody else did any digging into that theory whatsoever. And we essentially proved, I think, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it definitely was not a Pico balloon. Okay. And if it was, that's pretty scary that NORAD is scrambling jets to shoot down a kid's Pico balloon, which, by the way, anybody in the world could track on the internet as it circumnavigated the globe. Why does NORAD have to just now pick it up, really, and shoot it down? So we're not buying that. And something that still haunts me about the spy balloon, we know about this because of a dude in Montana who wouldn't give up on it. He saw something in the sky and he just hounded authorities until it was looked into. And if it hadn't been for dude, and I feel like this is an old Coors Light commercial. Here's to you, Mr. Dude in Montana, who wouldn't give up on the spy balloon, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't know about it. Think all the things we don't know about.
yeah.
I mean, there has to be hundreds, thousands, right, that we never know about, that we don't have a clue about. So I'm with you on disclosure too, because here's the fact of the matter. If an alien craft did come down Roswell, New Mexico, if we're reverse engineering alien technology, you're talking about the most important military secret in the history of the world. And do I believe the government is just going to be like, yep, here it is? No. It's not just the most important military secret, it's the most important secret in the history of humankind. And I don't think that secret's going to get out of the bag anytime soon. It has been a pleasure having Marianne, Robb, and Dave Rich from the UAP-PD on with us tonight. I would love to send it to Smitty right now. Any final thoughts on the night from you, Smitty?
Thank you so much for being with us, and keep up the good work, and maybe more people will come forward and tell their stories, and hopefully we can all come to a better understanding of what's going on.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And we'd like to have you back again sometimes.
Absolutely.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
That's for sure. And now I'd love to send it to Marianne. Dave, guys, could you tell everybody how to get in touch with you one more time? And then also your final thoughts on the evening with the UAP-PD.
Well, again, the way to contact us is on our website, UAP-PD.com. And again, there is a contact button. Please just click that button, contact us, give us your information. Also, our email address is uappolice@gmail.com. So please get with us. I thank you for allowing us to be on the show, getting our organization out there, and to people, police officers, law enforcement, and also first responders to know that we are there for them. There is an outlet. Do not allow this stuff like Dave to just fluster inside of you, and it was eating him from basically the inside out. He was losing the sleep and being stressed, and we're so happy to have this organization to allow officers and first responders to share their story and just get it off their chest.
Yeah, if I can piggyback off of that, you're not alone. If you are a first responder who has experienced something that you cannot explain, you are not alone. We are here for you. We're here to listen to you. We're here to only go as far as you're willing to go. We will keep it confidential, but just remember, if you're sitting here and you're watching this and you're like, wow, I had something happen, but I just don't know if I can tell them. I just don't know if I feel comfortable. Trust us. We were willing to take a bullet for you when we were on the job. We're still willing to do it.
Yep.
Just come forward, give us a call, and talk to us. And like I said, we will only go as far as you're willing to go. But we want to give you that opportunity to start moving towards recovery, start moving towards feeling better, feeling more confident, and hopefully gaining some understanding.
Well said, Dave and Marianne. And my final thoughts for the evening on the UAP-PD is that you play a vital role, guys, in the public's job of playing a part in data collection and anomalous phenomenon. So, folks, all of us can get off these things right here, these screens. The skies are not classified. The forest, most of them, some of them are not classified. But we can go out and go for a hike. We can watch the skies. You never know, one of us might be the ones reporting the next spy balloon. And organizations like the UAP-PD play a vital role in the public's and law enforcement's collection and disbursement of data. So thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And Smitty, if you could take us out for tonight.
Well, thank you again. Be happy, be strange, and listen to All Things Unexplained. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
All Things Unexplained.
What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you
Okay.
want it about
Yes,
the Alaska.
we do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Hey, Unexplained Ones, this is Dr. Mounts with All Things Unexplained. If you'd like to support the show, there's a few ways you can do it. One of the best ways is to check out our YouTube store. Just head over to youtube.com/@allthingsunexplained. You'll find hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, slides, and more. Another way to support the show is wherever you're listening. Make sure to follow or subscribe. Make sure to comment, hit the like buttons, share with everybody. And if you have a chance, leave us a rating and a review. These things really help the show defeat the algorithms that try to keep us away from disclosure. Finally, you can head over to bigfootufo.com for lots more. And remember, the truth is still out there.